Welcome everyone to the Lincoln City Council meeting of Monday, May 10th, 2021. Yay. In accordance with LB 898, please be advised that there's a copy of the Opens Meeting Act posted in the back of the chamber by the northwest door. Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a brief period of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for coming down today. The order of business for the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda. Under public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on the item must first register and sign in at the table located in the lobby. Then the council shall require any member of the public desiring to address the council to identify himself or herself, including an address and the name of the organization that they are representing at such time, unless the address requirement is waived to protect the security of that individual. Anyone wishing to speak on an item on the agenda should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant then may make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating their name, address, and if they represent an organization or not, and whether you're speaking in favor or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all the public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and on items under third reading. On the second and last Monday of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue that's not on this agenda or planned for a future agenda. Will the clerk please call the first item?
Okay. If you still wish to appear in person on an item on the agenda, you may come to our County City Building at 555 South 10th Street. Limited seating is available in the council chambers. Testifiers are asked to wait in the Bill Luxford studio or in the hallway until your item is called. Then you can enter the council chambers and come to the podium. After you are finished speaking, you can exit to the chambers through the doors to your immediate left. Our first item on our agenda for Monday, May 10th is our Mayor's Award of Excellence.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon once again, Chair McGinnis and members of the council, Madam Clerk. The Mayor's Award of Excellence for February 2020 is presented to Police Officer Jay Denson. He was nominated by retired LPD Captain Martin Fehringer in the categories of productivity and safety for his efforts to take narcotics and weapons off the street. Officer Denson has been a member of LPD for 11 years. And while it would be easy to assume that it was simply the pandemic that prevented us from presenting this award to him today, there is a little more to the story. In March of 2020, Jay was deployed to active military duty for 1 year. So in addition to recognizing his LPD service, we would want to take this opportunity to thank him for his service away from the city, and to thank his family, of course, for the sacrifices that they make to support his service here in our community and abroad. So back to the chapter that brings us here today before you. In January of 2019, Officer Denson completed a very successful 3-year rotation in the narcotics unit. And following that rotation, he returned to the third shift of the Northeast team and brought with him the knowledge and experience that he'd gained as a part of the unit. And that knowledge and experience would serve him well and make a positive impact on the safety of our community members. Over the next 10 months, Officer Denson served 13 search warrants for narcotics that resulted in 67 felony arrests and 14 misdemeanor arrests. His efforts took a substantial amount of narcotics, including methamphetamines and heroin, off of our streets. More than $10,000 was seized and 6 firearms were taken out of the hands of drug dealers. It takes a lot of behind-the-scenes work to make those search warrants and arrests happen. Fehringer wrote that Denson was organized, thorough, and tenacious in completing that many search warrants. This was in addition to his calls for service, his traffic stops, business checks, and patrols. Even more impressive than his productivity, Farringer said, is Denzin's monitoring of other officers on narcotics investigations. Crime Stoppers agreed and honored Denzin with the 2019 Crime Stoppers Officer of the Year Award. So I hope you'll join me in congratulating Jay for his hard work and commitment to the safety of our community members and to our City of Lincoln organization. I'd love for him to come on up and give him the award. Interim Police Chief Brian Jackson is here and would love to say a few words. You want to come on up, and if you want to stay right here, you can say a few words afterward.
Thanks. Brian Jackson, Acting Police Chief, Lincoln Police Department. It's always an honor, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for recognizing our staff. It's National Police Week. We're very busy throughout the week recognizing those officers that are currently working and those that are fallen. Jay, fortunately, is here with us and is setting a wonderful example of his work ethic and the value of some of our processes where he learned narcotics investigative skills through a rotation and then took that back on the street and not only continue that, but also help teach others that. And I think that is a great example of that force multiplication of being able to share that information and expand that to a much broader experience for our staff. Captain Farringer at the time does not give praise lightly, and so I suggest that Jay has done a fantastic job, and I know talking to Marty during the year that he was absolutely thrilled with your presence and what you're able to do and what your third shift was able to do. And I think one of the key things that he wanted to point out was that Jay would be the first one to say this was a team effort, in that that while he may have led that charge, there was a lot of other people in that process, and that's also recognized. And so the Lincoln Police Department also appreciates all the hard work you do, as do the citizens of Lincoln. So thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Captain Farringer, Chief Jackson, the mayor. Yeah, this is not me. This is my team that surrounded me. Thank you.
And Captain Farringer is here today as well, so I want to thank him for his past service. And do you have any family or friends here that you want? No? Okay. Well, thank you again for your service. Let's all give him one more round of applause.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's like starting off meetings like that. So, okay, Madam Clerk, let's go on.
Our next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, sections 1 and 2.
Is there anybody here who'd like to come forward to speak on sections 1 and or 2? Any items on there? Nobody in the back that wants to come forward? Okay, let's move on.
We can vote on these items. Item 1A is reappointing Dr. John Lloyd to the Lincoln Lancaster County Board of Health for a term to expire April 15, 2024, introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilperson Bowers. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen, Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1B is appointing Dr. Demet Batur to the Telecommunication Cable Television Advisory Board for a term to expire July 1st, 2023, introduced by Raybold.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilperson Washington. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1C is approving the professional service agreement between the City of Lincoln and Kirk and Michael Associates, Inc. for environmental services for the South 56th Street Spruce to Van Dorn Rehab Project, introduced by Raybold.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilperson Ward. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1D is approving the professional service agreement between the city and Kirk and Michael Associates, Inc. for preliminary engineering services for the South 56th Street Spruce to Van Dorn Rehab Project, introduced by Raybold.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilperson Christensen. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay.
Sections 2 is items 2A through 2F, introduced by Christensen.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. We have our Section 4 Public Hearing Liquor Resolutions. Item 4A is manager application of Taylor N. Huck for Rena Inc., doing business as The Foxy, located at 1823 O Street. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Taylor Hook. I'm here on behalf of Rena Inc. I'm here putting in my manager application.
Okay. Thank you for coming down. Do we have any questions?
No, I don't.
Or Ms. Huck? Nope. Seeing
That
none.
was a good answer, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you for coming down.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else like to come forward on item 4A? Okay. Seeing none, we can move on.
I'll be calling items 4B and 4C together. Application of True Management Group LLC doing business as Fox Bar and Grill for a Class I liquor license located at 1245 Libra Drive, Suite 110, and the related manager application of Kyung Han Chu.
Is there anybody who'd like to come forward on this item today? Okay. Seeing none, we can move on.
Item 4D is the application of Glacial Till Vineyard and Winery LLC doing business as Glacial Till for special designated licenses to cover an outdoor area measuring approximately 10 feet by 10 feet at the Haymarket Farmers Market at 7th and P Streets on May 22nd and 29th, June 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 p.m.
Is there anybody who'd like to come forward on this application? Yes,
Mr. Chair,
Councilperson.
seeing none. I will move approval of items 4A through D.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Rabel. Any other questions? Okay, see none, let's call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Our next section is Section 5, Public Hearing Resolutions. Item 5A is approved True Management Group LLC doing business as Fox Bar and Grill as a Keno satellite located at 1245 Libra Drive, Suite 110.
Is there anybody who'd like to come forward to speak on this item? Okay, Seeing none, let's move on to the next item.
Item 5B is waiver 21003, application of Rockefeller LLC to reduce the minimum parking requirement by 20 stalls for truck terminals on a portion of one lot on property generally located at 7750 North 56th Street, Unit G.
Does anybody like to come forward to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none, let's vote on our resolutions.
Item 5A is approved True Management Group LLC doing business as Fox Bar and Grill, the Keno Satellite located at 1245 Libra Drive, Suite 110, introduced by Raybold.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Ward. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call a roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5B is waiver 21003, application of Rockefeller LLC to reduce the minimum parking requirements by 20 stalls for truck terminals on a portion of one lot on property generally located at 7750 North 56th Street, Unit G, introduced by Raybold.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded by Councilperson Ward. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, let's please call a roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, moving on to public hearing for ordinances and second readings.
I'll ask permission to call items 6A and 6B together. They're related items.
Yes, go ahead.
6A is change of zone 21012, application of the Planning Department Director from P Public District to B4 Lincoln Center Business District on property generally located at 220 Centennial Mall South. And the related comprehensive plan conformance 21007, application of the Urban Development Director to amend to the Lincoln Center redevelopment plan to add the Pershing Block redevelopment project as a new project area to include affordable and workforce housing units, a downtown central library, commercial space, flexible space, active green space, and a sub-level parking facility on property generally located at 220 Centennial Mall.
Good afternoon, Director.
Good afternoon, all. Dan Marvin, Urban Development Department, 555 South 10th Street. And with your permission, we were going to try to go through slides that we took through the Planning Commission to kind of give you an idea of what's going on in the Pershing block. And with me today is the library director and the developer for this project. And then we'll try to be brief because I know this don't have too many items on your agenda. So what you have before you is a zone change and a plan amendment. And what you see on your screens is a picture of three different buildings or three different ideas. First was the original Pershing building built in the 1950s. It was replaced when we built the arena, a larger facility. The arena was approved on a vote that was somewhere around 57, 58 to 42, 43, which from that point forward, once the arena was built, the useful life of the Pershing building had been exhausted. So we're trying to envision a new use for this block, and what you see is a conceptual site plan for this area, which shows a library and a mixed-use development. At the L-shaped part in the back would be the mixed-use development. Along the way, in 2018, the City of Lincoln hired a consultant to do a new downtown master plan. Did a lot of research on the downtown, looked at a lot of different areas. That master plan for the downtown was brought to the Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commission and was approved on November 28th, 2018. It was adopted by this body on December 17th, 2018. And that master plan that then was folded into the Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan. And so the plan amendment, I think the question before you today is, does the plan amendment of putting this mixed-use development on the Pershing block conform with the comprehensive plan? one of the planning commissioners said that this was a very low bar, but this is an important first step in that process. Some of the things that the downtown master plan envisioned was a livable neighborhood in the downtown, active uses, try to redevelop the blighted properties in the area, build a 21st century library, enhance pedestrian connections, parking, and focus on catalyst sites that, two that were identified were the Pershing Block and the Bennett Martin Library site. So how have we been doing on this? We put this slide up to try to give you an idea of some of the things that we've been working on. Redeveloping the Pershing Center block was one of the key elements for a catalyst project, and it's a public-private partnership was what the master plan envisioned. The payment sources would be tax increment finances, a citywide bond issue. It's in a new market tax credit area, and try to create other tools for housing development in the downtown, low-income housing tax credits being one of the possible sources. But not to make it look like that's the only thing we're focusing on. Last year we took before this body an O Street streetscape plan. We're working on greenways for M Street and 11th Street, working on a music district over on 14th and O, and we're also working on a new park in the Haymarket area. So out of the book, the book that was approved, the Downtown Master Plan, it envisioned a mixed-use development that was option D on the Pershing block that had a vision of residential, of ground floor retail, a civic use as a library, and parking accessed off of 16th Street, which I think is what is before you in this plan amendment. After we're doing the due diligence on the downtown master plan, urban development initiated a website. That website was to entertain proposals from developers. The site went live on September of 2018. In 2020, in March of 2020, we did receive one proposal. We did a press release that we've received a proposal on Pershing, and ultimately we received 5 proposals on that block. And we convened a group to review all the different proposals, and the developer of record that was selected was White Lotus Group, and Mayor concurred, and we've sent them notice that they are the developer of record on the Pershing block. This is my last slide before Pat steps up here. So where are we in this process? We're still really early. We're the second box on here. The Planning Commission did approve this unanimously. The zone change as well. And let's talk a little bit about the zone change. Most of the downtown is B4. It's not public. In fact, this block is probably one of the few blocks that's identified as P for public. And the idea is that we would expect that this would be zoned B4. Do libraries and B4 zoning work? Well, it just so happens that Bennett Martin sits on B4 zoning. So you can have public uses on a B4 zone, and we are not changing the zone and signing over the property to White Lotus Group. You'll see the third box down the list is a redevelopment agreement. We would anticipate at the point that we can do a redevelopment agreement, we will have identified all the different uses that can go on the property, and the purchase agreement would be tied into the redevelopment agreement at that point. If we can't reach a redevelopment agreement, which I don't anticipate that to be a problem, but if we can't, the city will still retain ownership of that property as a B4. So we are here on the second box. City Council approves a plan amendment and the zone change. We would come back to you at a later date with a redevelopment agreement. There's design work that's being done. There was an RFP that was out that I think Pat would speak to for the selecting of the designer for the library portion of that block, and the developer has retained engineers and architects to do the work that is necessary to get a building put up on their end of the property too. At some point, we would need to take the building forward for demolition, and then following that, we would need voter approval. We don't think the building that is standing there is the long-term future for the Pershing block, so we would need to demolish it one way or the other, no matter what the block is going to be used for. And then at some point in the future, we would need to come to this body to ask for a ballot item to be put before the voters for the construction of a library. And then pending approval from the voters, we would be able to go forward with a construction of the project. Let me turn it over to Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
Good afternoon.
Hello, I'm Pat Leach. I'm the director of Lincoln City Libraries, and what I'd like to do this afternoon is just a brief history of the library in downtown Lincoln and a sense for what we're considering then going into the future. Overall, we're thinking with libraries, I often mention the 3 L's, which are learning, literature, and literacy, and all of those things done in community through a public library. So those are the big ideas behind a lot of what we do, with community being a key word there. This slide shows it's described as a pre-1900 location of the library, indicated by that arrow. Prior to the 1890s, when the library was in this building, libraries started in Lincoln in the 1860s as 2 private associations where you bought a membership in order to be part of a library, one for women, one for men. Not long after that, state law was changed to allow for cities to have public libraries, and Lincoln then decided to have a public library. It moved it to various buildings during this period, ended up in this building here. Unfortunately, a fire destroyed that building and destroyed the library within it, so the only items remaining were those that were checked out at the time. It was also at about this time then that Andrew Carnegie began his project of building libraries throughout the country as a result of his generosity, as well as a drive by the citizens of Lincoln to raise funds for this library. The old main library was built at 14th and N Streets, and it served for nearly 60 years on that site. This is that library being demolished in 1961 to make way for the Bennett Martin Library, which we know today. Bennett Martin Library opened in 1962. It was built in 3 phases. So in this picture, you see the original part of the building, which was an L, partly along N Street, partly along 14th Street. And the intention all along was that the building was designed on the site in order to be expanded at some point. So this is a picture of the building today, and in the background you can see the addition. So at one point, another L was created along the YW building and the alley, leaving a courtyard in the middle, and that was a 2-story building as well, and then 3 additional stories to the new were added in 1978. This is the building that we have today. And I would like to talk a little bit about library board studies of this library and the thinking that has gone on about what is the best course of action for our downtown library. In 2003, the library commissioned a study in that the question was similar to that of many property owners, where we realized that a lot of investment needed to happen in this building to bring its heating, ventilation, and air conditioning up to date, to bring the building itself up to date for serving the public, frankly. At that time, in that study, the suggestion was made that actually it probably made more sense to go to a new building or a different building instead of putting a lot of investment in the Bennett Martin building. We completed an additional study 10 years later called the Vision and Concept Study, which in very broad brushstrokes looked at what services a library should be offering at this time. It looked at various sites in Lincoln and did some general study of the best place for it. At that time, that was in 2013. It was, as the arena was being built, there was a sense that the Pershing building would be going offline. And at that time, the Pershing site rose to the top of the list. We looked West Haymarket through Union Plaza at that time. People sometimes say, what are the weaknesses of the Bennett Martin building? A few that I would mention. I mean, one is the outdated systems and the fact that it will take some money to update those. The other aspect of the building, a couple of them, one is just the difficulty of taking a building of this vintage and just essentially rewiring it completely for technology and for adaptability and for the flexibility that we need today. The other thing that I, as an administrator, would point out, the courtyard in this building is its best feature, frankly, in terms of bringing sunlight into the building and having a beautiful aspect. But it also creates a lot of small spaces within the library. Those are not very adaptable, and they are difficult both to staff and to secure. So that basic arrangement, even though it creates beauty, also creates limitations. So we are continuing to look elsewhere for a new library, and as part of the White Lotus Group project, see great possibilities then for the Pershing site. We did complete a building program a few years ago, and that gave us some more specific information with a lot of public input as to what a new library should have in it. And we are basing many of our estimates and plans on that building program. So again, with the White Lotus redevelopment, we're delighted to be part of an overall project which is in the midst of housing and fitness and retail. I think it's really a great way of demonstrating that the library works when it's firmly within community. And I think the library also brings a really exciting public aspect to that project. Right now, our estimates of costs, et cetera, are based on our earlier studies. And at this point, within the capital improvement program, we're showing a $50 million project, some of which would be provided, most of which would be provided through a bond issue and some through other means as well, potentially through private fundraising, and we'll be seeking other grant opportunities that might be available to us for that building. As Dan mentioned, we are in the process of hiring a design firm to do the schematic design for a central library. And as part of their work, they will be looking at this specific site at a particular design that will be developed, and they will be able to give us accurate estimates of the likely building costs, as well as then a reasonable time frame for making this building happen. And part of our responsibility as part of an overall project is to ensure that we are moving forward in a way that keeps the project moving forward. So that is part of our charge and responsibility now, is to do that planning in concert with others. A couple things I wanted to mention. A question that I get quite a bit is, what does a new downtown library offer to Lincoln? What do 21st century libraries do that might be different from what you would see at Bennett Martin Library? We have visited quite a few new central libraries in various states. One thing that those libraries have a lot of success with, and this is a part of the community aspect of this public building, are a variety of meeting and gathering spaces. So on the left here is the big room at the Wichita, Kansas new public library. It is a dividable room. The day we were there, they had just finished up training over 100 census employees. Kind of in contrast to that is the study room that you see from the Lawrence, Kansas Public Library. That's a space for more like 2 to 4 people. Spaces like that get used by people who maybe work from home and need to meet people. It might be a tutor space. It could be a place where someone is using the library technology, say, to do a Zoom interview because they don't have that technology at home. So as I talk to directors of new central libraries and ask what has been surprisingly successful, they almost always say the meeting rooms that they have available for people. Then teen zones, being able to create a space for teens in the downtown core. This is a picture of Lawrence's teen zone, which was very, very busy the day that we visited. This happens to be a picture of the children's area in the Cedar Rapids Public Library. Cedar Rapids is on a scale very similar to Lincoln's, and they have found a lot of success in their new location, revitalizing an area and creating a great space for families. Then many of you are aware of the makerspace phenomenon and makerspace culture, where within a public space a lot of technology is available for people to use, again, together in community. This happens to be from Wichita. This is an audiovisual studio within their public library, and it's one that gets a lot of use and brings in a lot of people to use that space. And we would expect to be creating maker spaces within a new central library. And we do stay in touch with the other providers of maker spaces in Lincoln to say what is their role, what is our role, how do we work together in terms of providing that kind of experience for people in Lincoln. So with that, I wanted to provide you a taste of the history of what's here and then a sense of what's to come in terms of 21st century libraries. We do tend to stay in our buildings well past their usual date. And so that underscores the importance to me as an administrator of durability and adaptability within any building that we create. And as I mentioned before, we are really very happy to be part of a private-public partnership here, to be part of this bigger project. You know, it allows us to continue, again, nurturing those 3 L's, the learning, the literacy, the literature, truly in community. So for that reason, I'm very pleased that we're able to be part of this project and part of thinking ahead for what will make a difference in the Lincoln community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Any comments from Pat? Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Probably won't be the last time we hear from you.
I will be brief, I promise. Arun Agarwal, CEO of White Lotus Group. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. One thing that normally I don't like reading, but I'm going to read in our project mission during our submission for this, because I think it actually speaks highly about the mindset of what our proposal was. Create an inclusive, thriving, and catalytic destination in a revered location of Lincoln, promoting neighborhood vitality through a synthesis of accessibility, thoughtful design, and equity. Firmly embedded within this community-focused development are the elements that bond us all together on an aspirational, civic, and human basis to transform our mind, our body, and our soul. It's important for us, I think, to think about what this project means, and certainly as it being one of the 5 catalytic projects of the master plan, we take it that seriously. And as currently a civic site, to make this a civic redevelopment. You know, Pat graciously discussed the 3 L's. For us, we think about access to services, access to information, and access to housing. And these are 3 elements that we've brought to this particular development. But with these beautiful imagery that we get, we also want to make sure that the design and the intent of this is significant, given where it is on Centennial Mall. And that is top of mind as we try to aim to achieve our mission. But we must also recognize that some of the challenges with this particular site, demolition, the capital environs as a result, the height limitations, and the views that we need to honor through the city. And with that, I want to applaud that the city, the staff, and all the corporate citizens of Lincoln that have been highly engaged through the last year in this process. It has not been one entity. The culmination of this project has been a large listening and learning journey throughout Lincoln, and a lot of our submission has been a result of a lot of those conversations. So we appreciate that, and here to answer any questions, if any.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Atwell? Thank you for coming down. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward to speak on this item?
Good afternoon, Chairman McGinnis and council members. Thank you for serving our great city and community and people, and also want to target one of you, Roy. Thank you. It was an honor to work together with you over the years and do a lot of good for our city. So thank you. So part of my time in service on council was shortly after citizens voted to build the new arena in the West Haymarket. Then suddenly there was a for sale sign on Pershing Auditorium. And that was 2010. And Mr. McGinnis, you're in that business, and it's been sitting there empty. And it's not that we haven't had efforts to try to move it, but there were really two times when there were significant efforts. One was 2013, 14 in that area, and there were several proposals that came forward. 3 of them were kind of finalists, and none of them was exactly right. And the committee and Mayor Beitler at the time understood it. Just we needed to wait until we got the right proposal to come forward. And then a year ago, as Mr. Marvin explained, was really the second round. And again, there were multiple proposals. There were proposals for only housing. There were proposals for only government buildings. And quite honestly, there are a lot of government buildings there. And at 5 o'clock on weekday evenings, they're dead. Weekends, they're dead. That's not the kind of vitality that the downtown master plan had envisioned. A kind of catalyst project that would bring people into downtown, help grow neighboring properties around downtown. And so when the White Lotus Group made their proposal, that was it. That was exactly the kind of thing that our community had been looking for a number of years, and they really brought it to us. So I was excited to be a part of that group that reviewed the proposals, and particularly grateful for that particular one. With that, I will close my remarks and thank you. If there are any questions that you have, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Yes, thanks for coming down. Do we have any questions?
Thank you.
Nope, thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward to speak on this item?
Oh, good afternoon. I'm Dan Sloan, 405 South 28th Street. I'm Vice President of the Library Board of Trustees. You also may know me as the owner of the mill. And I've been up here for a number of different things, but this one brings me great pleasure to be here. I am speaking on behalf of the Library Board in support of this action. I think this is a terrific project. I think downtown really needs this project. I think we really need a central library. I wanted to be part of the Library Board because I have a strong passion for libraries and for the impact that they have on Lincoln. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really take that impact to a new level and to drive it into future generations. The Library Board has been interested in the Pershing block for a very long time. To us, it seems like a very natural fit. I think great cities deserve great libraries. I think libraries are catalysts. I think they help in a huge way to retain and develop the kind of talent that Lincoln needs to continue to thrive. Families go where there's great schools and they go where there's great libraries. And I think this is a good opportunity for that. And I think having a central library in the heart of downtown speaks volumes about what Lincoln says about education, their commitment to access to that knowledge and those resources. We realize this is just one step along the way. There's a long road to go. The bond issue is probably the biggest hurdle that we're going to be dealing with, but this is a very important step for us to step back and say, is this really what we want in our downtown? Is this really what we want for that block? And I would argue that it is absolutely a terrific use of that. The library takes pride in all of the services that it provides, but it also takes great pride in the open access of those services. And I think that downtown location really helps make that access more available. I think libraries are transformative in the lives of those that they touch. I've volunteered in the library over the years in a number of ways, and seeing the different ways that it impacts children and family, it's really important. I just want to say that the library board is strongly involved in this process. we're strongly supportive of this redevelopment. White Lotus has done a really nice job of including us in their plans and in the site, and I would encourage you to approve this.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for coming down.
Good afternoon, Council. Todd Ogden, President of Downtown Lincoln Association, 206 South 13th Street. I don't have a lot to add, but just want to take this time just to celebrate the resiliency of downtown throughout this whole year, with all of you on council, and certainly, having development proposals along the way like Arun's and the library involved here, as Pat talked, and even Dan, as places like the Mill have really kind of survived this pandemic, and really we're looking to continue to grow our downtown to become and continue to be the center of opportunity. And that's exactly what we see as this project with the downtown master plan that we have here that Dan Marvin showed you today. I'm not allowed to leave anywhere without this, so I do want to say this is in accordance to our downtown master plan. And what I like most about this project, and what our board likes most about this project, the Pershing location isn't just about that block. It's going to be an amazing block, but the community commons with the blocks around it, I think, will have a tremendous impact on the whole neighborhood. Not only that specific area, but downtown, and certainly our surrounding neighborhoods south of downtown and different areas like that. So that opportunity can be welcoming to all, and I think this kind of fits all of those holes and really fits within this plan. Like everybody said, there's a long way to go, but this is an important step, and just let you know that Downtown Lincoln Association is excited to keep these ideas moving forward and these developments moving forward, and looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Thank you, Mr. Ogden. Any questions for Todd? Nope. Thank you for coming down, sir. Anybody else like to come forward to speak on this item?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs of Lincoln Government. This is a more appropriate use of the Pershing area. We spoke against it when they were just planning a big library downtown, and we couldn't see that that would be a good use of taxpayers' money. So this is more looks like it'd be user-friendly, but for the people that live down there. However, recently, the council has approved an awful lot of apartments downtown, and we don't have people to fill them. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's all going to work out. People are clamoring for separate homes rather than apartments. So you may have bit off more than you can chew, but I guess the city just keeps on approving, and then the developers have to figure that out.
Ms. Kinsey, Jane, did you give us your address?
I didn't hear you. What?
Can you give us your address?
6703 Hawkins Bend, Lincoln.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward to speak on this item at this time? Okay, seeing none, we can move on.
That ends our public hearing on our ordinances and related resolutions. Section 7, resolutions first readings are items 7A and 7 through 7C. Ordinances first readings and related resolutions are items 8A through 8B. And our pending list are items 9A through 9C.
Okay. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter that's not on this agenda or not planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time. Individuals are allowed a total of 5 minutes to speak, regardless of the number of topics. Tonight is one of those nights or this afternoon, that we have our open mic. Would you please make sure that you identify yourself and also include an address and any organization you may be representing?
Hello, my name is John Irons, and I live at 328 North 33rd Street. I represent myself, and I thank the City Council for their time today. I'm here to discuss our current situation with dealing with COVID and the Lincoln City mask mandate. Like most people, I've been following the spread of COVID since its beginning. I watched the videos of people in China dropping in the streets, being locked in their homes, and the construction of emergency morgues for all the bodies that were going to happen. At first, the remote schooling, lockdowns, and mask mandates, excuse me, seemed like a logical response to such a deadly disease. Now, over a year later, it's turned out that this pandemic is not as dangerous as we feared it would be, and that's a good thing. Instead of the predicted 2.2 million deaths, we've had less than a fourth of that, and that's even with the CDC admitting that they've inflated the numbers. Fortunately, some early steps that were taken, social distancing, washing hands, staying home when sick, and wearing masks in public had a direct effect on that number. However, some of these actions taken to slow the spread and to flatten the curve have had unintended consequences being in place for too long. Suicides, drug abuse, domestic abuse have all risen sharply. Businesses have closed their doors to never reopen. Students are falling behind, and people's livelihoods have been ruined. I know that COVID is real. I've lost family to it. My great aunt died from it after the governor of her state sent a COVID-infected patient to her nursing home. Like the majority of deaths from this disease, she was over the age of 80 and had other comorbidities. A mask mandate would not have stopped this from happening. A report from the CDC has shown that 78% of people hospitalized with COVID this last year were overweight or obese. The CDC chief has now warned that suicide deaths are higher than the COVID-19 deaths. The numbers for last year's overdoses is almost as bad as teenage suicides. The CDC has also recently stated that the survival rate of people under 19 years of age that actually get COVID is 99.997%. The CDC just raised the average comorbidities of people who died from COVID from 3 to 4. That means you'd have to be overweight, have diabetes, have a heart condition. They've raised the average to 4 of those. This virus is not as dangerous as we are all led to believe, and that's a good thing. Before this past year, decades of science have shown that cloth masks don't stop the spread of flu or other viruses transmitted by air. After all, how could a mask with openings larger than the virus actually stop the virus? It's like believing that a chain link fence would stop a mosquito. Only medical grade N95 masks can stop COVID virus, and they're not even 100%. Thinking that someone else wearing a cloth mask in public will keep you healthy is the same as believing that someone else jogging will help you lose weight. Under our current rules, you can wear a mask into a restaurant, sit down, order food, then take off the mask to eat. When you're done eating and then put the mask back on, you stand up and leave. Does this mean that COVID floats above the air where people are eating? Or that you can't get it while eating? Under our current rules, you can go to the Lincoln Airport, you need to wear a mask and stand 6 feet apart before boarding, but then you get on a plane, sit down right next to someone, take off your mask to eat and drink, breathe the same recycled air. This line of thinking requires us not to use common sense or logic. During this mask mandate, I've witnessed people wearing masks indoors below their nose, under their chin, or not at all. Also during this time, I've not seen a single biohazardous medical waste container to collect used and dirty masks in public. If this virus is as dangerous or contagious as we were initially told, then people would not tolerate others wearing their mask incorrectly, and they would be instructed on how to properly dispose of their mask. It is time to end the policies that are detrimental to our society and go against common sense. We were warned that COVID would rapidly rise in states like Florida and Texas if mandates were lifted. Months later, this is not the case. If you're overweight, elderly, or have pre-existing conditions and would feel safer wearing a mask in public, then by all means, do so. If you're waiting for COVID to disappear, I hate to tell you this, but it's like the flu and cold. It's not going to go away. One last thing about this is that there's starting to be two types of people, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. We're already seeing it in other states where they're having separate seating in stadiums, and this is affecting businesses. We need to be logical and forward-thinking in the mass state and put in place issues and policies that protect everyone, protect their right to privacy and their own medical history. I'd like to thank the City Council at this time. I please urge you to return to common sense and work with Mayor Baird and the Lincoln City Lancaster Health Department and end the mask mandate in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Any questions?
Anybody?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward to speak this afternoon?
Good afternoon. Roy Helm, 2750 South 13th Street, and I represent myself. To Councilman Christensen, thank you for your service. I haven't always agreed with you, but I do appreciate that you've served our community, and I know that deep down you have our best interest at heart. Whether we agree or not is not important, but thank you. I'm not here to complain about anything. I know that there are a lot of issues and a lot of concerns still surrounding all of us, regardless of whether it is COVID-related or having to do with racial inequality or how we treat each other. But I think we again, I will say we need to look at the good and the positive of what's around us. This was a chilly morning, but it was an absolutely glorious spring morning. It was just beautiful. A little chilly, a little frost on our roof, but it's moments and opportunities like that we really need to take advantage of and appreciate. And speaking of appreciation, for those of you who are mothers on council, I hope you had a happy Mother's Day. And for those of us who have mothers, I hope we all appreciated our mothers and thanked them for raising us. My mother has passed, but I still found a moment to thank her for doing what she could for me. But rather than prattle on, I came today with a reading, and it is from a book called The Love Song of J. Edgar Hoover, authored by Kinky Friedman. Got a strange name. He's a rather interesting individual. I don't agree with his politics all the time, but he does have a way with words. So this is an excerpt from that book. It is a rather tedious fact of life that most of us who are confined to the human condition spend a great deal of time wishing to be something we're not, or someone we're not. The proctologist, scrupulously washing his hands before and after each patient, dreams of being Dr. Albert Schweitzer. The rock star, as he worries whether to leave the Porsche with valet parking, dreams of saving the rainforest. The bank teller dreams of embezzling $1 million and moving to Costa Rica. The average Costa Rican dreams of moving to Akron, Ohio, and becoming a bank teller. The many people who live anonymous little lives long for fame. The handful of people who have become truly trapped in the thing that is fame invariably long for anonymity. As far as the rest of us go, we have to deal with so many assholes every day, we figured we probably should have been proctologists and at least get paid for it.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Ron. Roy.
Hello, my name is Robert Way. I live at 7120 Adams Street. I'll be brief. I hadn't plan on speaking today, but the former councilman and my fellow citizen reminded me it definitely needs to be said. Councilman Christensen has given good service to this community. It's not an easy job. You all get paid $24,000 a year to have people yell at you a bunch. There's no way in your job you can ever make anybody happy, because people are always going to have legitimate value differences, and we all get to have a say. That's the beauty and the constant challenge of our system of government, that we're always going to be in conflict. And the people who choose to stand and serve our citizens definitely deserve recognition. Councilman Christensen also served his country in another way. He has been a great citizen, and I appreciate his service.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to come forward this afternoon?
Samuel Lyon, Lincoln, Nebraska. I also am not here to complain about anything, but to instead inform. Less than a month ago, this council took up the task of passing a resolution that affirms the city's commitment to be a diverse and inclusive community. It provided the opportunity for those in the Asian community to come in and speak about violence, intimidation, or racism that they may have experienced. Some of our Asian neighbors across Lincoln came and spoke of harassment, shunning, sneers, slights, being viewed with suspicion, taunting, and a restaurant refusing service. As I listened to these disgraceful acts, I realized that they are all too familiar to some others in our community. Some of the notable quotes from members of this council were, quote, "We as a community should reject stigma, hate, and bias in all forms. Our city is vibrant, inclusive, and tolerant." These reprehensible displays of hate have often gone unreported and noticed. End quotes. And your resolution read in part, "Whereas hate, violence, and bias are not accepted in our community, especially when targeting or scapegoating individuals based on their race or identity." These are admirable things to want for our community. And as I listened online, I realized I needed to inform you of another group of people who are also being targeted with hate, a marginalized group. You have heard from some of them, and there are also others likely to testify today. Those are the people among us who are not wearing masks. There has been a targeted effort to harass, intimidate, and berate some of the most vulnerable in our community, those with medical or mental health issues, restricting their use of masks. I think this is about to transition to those who are not participating in the experimental use of some of the new vaccines. Less than a month ago, you took up the cause of one group of people being targeted by ignorance and hate. I want to show you something that illustrates a lingering problem I have seen in our city since the mandate started. I want to warn you, some of those, and to you watching at home, there are hateful words used in this footage, and parental discretion is advised. I have witnessed similar occasions right here in Lincoln on multiple occasions when some in our community allowed hate to rule their actions.
I'm okay with you going to the grocery store. I'm okay with you going by. These aren't my rules that you should stay home. This is your rule. You're poor losers. We laugh at you guys. What is there to laugh at? Laugh at you because you lost. What did we lose? What? There's a lot of people are dying, and a lot of people are having to take care of your stupid ass because you won't fucking wear a mask. Who's taking care of me? My daughter is. She is a nurse. My friends are nurses, and you're standing over here by CHI, and you're doing this shit because you're too goddamn asshole to put a fucking mask on. I have a mask on. Yeah, I have. No, you don't. I do. You don't wear a fucking mask when you're inside collecting signatures, asshole. I have a mask on. As all medical decisions. Don't go to the hospital if you're not wearing a mask. As all medical decisions. Hey, how come it's okay for you to call people names? Why would you do that? When people are assholes, I call them assholes.
I apologize for the graphic nature of what you just saw. It's hard to imagine people in our community being attacked like that while simply taking part of the civic process. Immediately following, she offered to go get some COVID and bring it back and infect me with it. There's about 5 minutes of this. And the reason I bring this to you is I believe this city is partly to blame. With signs that we see all over like, do the responsible thing. Quote, do the compassionate thing, wear a mask. The logical progression is if someone isn't wearing a mask, it's because they're not a good person. They are dehumanized. They are an evil person and therefore deserve our contempt. Perhaps a similar resolution to the one you passed earlier could be adopted to combat this new form of hate. It might read something like this. Whereas hate, violence, and bias are not accepted in our community, especially when targeting or scapegoating individuals or groups based on their use or disuse of a face covering or an experimental vaccine. I'll let you take it from there. As I said earlier, if you're serious about addressing ignorance, intolerance, scapegoating, and hate in our community, you will address this like you have the other marginalized groups in our city. And as you can see, you have your work cut out for you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Did you leave your address?
Yes, it's on file.
Okay. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward and speak this afternoon?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. The election is over for the city council, and the council is in control almost totally by Democrats. When this happens, there's a temptation to move swiftly to solidify the control. This isn't Democrats, this is Republicans too. And this is the usual way in politics. When one party dominates a government entity, and at the present time, the Democratic Party is controlled by the left wing. It's good to change. Its goal is to change society, to give government more power over citizens' lives and more power to minorities. This is admirable within itself. However, the present situation has been outlandish, to say the least. It has become the tyranny of the minority. Citizens are ordered to change the meaning of basic English words that have been in the language since it was started. Humans are now divided into male, female, and other, rather than the natural gender classification used since the dawn of civilization. We are told to be confident or to denigrate ourselves by the color of our skin. That U.S. history has been changed and its leaders should be discarded. That our schools should be taught education about sexual diversity to 5-year-olds when they are innocent. That if we disagree nationally with others' viewpoint, we are racists, white supremacists, or fascists. The environment all over the country is one of Alice in Wonderland, where down is up and up is down, and Jabberwocky reigns supreme. Watchdogs hopes that the new council will be a sensible population of Lincoln and will not succumb to this crazy phenomenon. The laws of the universe, the progress of humans, and the good sense of decent moral people should not be changed by scientists, intervention, or social engineering. It has never worked. It's been tried many times, but eventually has been overcome by the goodwill of decent majority of the world's population. Each human deserves an environment that provides love, respect, and contentment of its mind. The last attempt to disrupt this was World War II, and that crushed Nazism. We hope that you will use your good sense to provide a good environment for all Lincolnites, and that you will listen to the people who elected you. Let's hope that this this perverse environment doesn't come to Lincoln, even though it may already have.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsey. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward to speak today?
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Elena Newman, 5610 Hunts Drive. I haven't been here for a few weeks. Did anybody miss me? No? All right, that's a shame. That's about the response I get always. That's okay. As most speakers here, I'm here to draw your attention to issues that I see as a source of concern. My biggest issue today is that of the DHM accountability or lack thereof. Per the website, lincoln.ne.gov, there are 7 exemptions to the DHM. I have emailed all of you, the health director, the mayor, multiple times about the DHM's exemptions and how some businesses, corporations mostly, are not following these exemptions. These businesses are also engaging in discrimination, harassment, bullying of those individuals who claim to fall under one of the exemptions. I got a general reply from Sandra, and in fact, she's the only one who's ever replied to me, which thank you for replying to me. I sometimes think that my emails are not going anywhere. Who referred me to a source from which I have not yet heard of. While I appreciate the reply, I would have also hoped that my district representative would have contacted me as well. Furthermore, I also received a response from a representative from the mayor's office, not the mayor herself. That's disappointing, as my email was directed to her specifically. When I noted my complaint, I was told by this representative that, quote, "We do not investigate complaints, nor do we have any oversight of the private sector business." This seems to be untrue, as the same website says, quote, "The city will continue to focus on education rather than enforcement, but will prosecute repeated offenses or deliberate noncompliance." To me, this means the entire DHM. I was recently informed that complaints by those who qualify for public accommodations under exemption should contact the Nebraska Equal Opportunity Commission. This is nowhere on the website. So my question is, where's the education? Where's the accountability? Where's the transparency? As far as the mayor and the health director go, I have requested multiple times that they address exemptions in their Wednesday update. So have other people. This has not been done, and I want to know why. There's a lot of ignoring or shifting of responsibility that's happening. If a government body is going to expect its constituents to follow the rules, the government body itself has to also follow the rules. Both DHM and federal ADA law, both of which are partially followed or blatantly not followed. While it is the responsibility of all parties involved to ensure that DHM exemptions are being followed, because you have approved and continue to support such a measure, this is not the case. People, businesses, government representatives are cherry picking what they follow and don't follow. I've received very little help in this matter until just recently, after 6 months of begging, pleading, and asking. Meaning, one, are unaware of the exemptions, or two, ignored the exemptions altogether. And being unaware, this is on you, the mayor, and the health director. You are supposed to be educating these entities as per your claim on your website. Many businesses will tell me that exemptions don't matter as the store policy says XYZ. I beg to differ. This is false. Again, an attempt to shift responsibility. Federal ADA law trumps any and all business policies. Furthermore, employees at those businesses will ask for proof or will call people out in front of other patrons. This practice is also illegal and violates federal ADA law. The education is not being done. The bias is in full force and is unacceptable. Picking and choosing is not acceptable. I've taken it into my own hands to educate businesses in this regard, and I have outlined the process to all of you in an email that I sent to every one of you. And the process that I will take for each business who does not follow exemptions in the DHM. I have so far had 5 out of 5 businesses apologize to me. Again, I've only received a reply from Sandra. The DHM exemptions are there for a reason. I'm seeing signs across town as an attempt to focus on mental health in form of positive messages, but I'm not seeing progress being made to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. People are constantly harassed, bullied, and discriminated against. While all this is happening, those who have the power to do something are stepping aside and letting it go on. In psychology, this is called a bystander, who's just as guilty as the one doing the wrong. One of these instances was on March 15th, where I provided an emotional testimony before you after another constituent before my testimony proceeded to make fun of others in this community and insult those in this community. When people ask for help, nothing is done. We're referred to source XYZ, that then refers us to source XYZ, and so on and so forth. I've heard many of you talk about compassion, understanding, but I feel like these words are just used as buzzwords. Those who say do this and do that, it's great that their life has allowed them to make such statements. However, some individuals have real issues that they deal with on a regular basis that are further complicated by the DHM. Compassion, understanding, empathy, and sympathy go both ways. It's not a one-way street. It has to stop, and you all need to stand up for the equality and respect that you talk about, the compassion that you encourage. Finally, I would like a resolution brought forward to the next meeting to protect all medical professionals' judgment calls and ability to speak to you for the betterment of their patients without fear of retribution. I find it interesting that only doctors who have come forward to talk to the council are those who are in favor of what's being done as it pertains to the emergency declaration and a mandate. What is missing are those professionals who disagree with what's being done. Why are they not here? Why are they not asked to provide feedback? What makes their expertise any less? The bias is here whether you like to admit it or not. Medical health professionals who are serving the city are being dismissed, threatened, and discriminated against. Ultimately, this bias is what is causing distrust and hesitancy that you all in the Lincoln Journal-Star continue to speak of. This will continue as long as the cherry picking and censoring is allowed to happen.
Can you wrap this up?
Yes. So in conclusion, I urge you to talk the talk and walk the walk. Do what you say you're going to do and educate businesses about exemptions and federal ADA law. And then draft a resolution to protect medical professionals, all medical professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward to speak at this time? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to say, remember the golden rule. I move adjournment.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold. Please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We are adjourned.